Hi, everybody. Welcome. Come on in. So as folks get ready to join us, we're going to be using the chat features this afternoon. So as you have questions, those are far more interesting than what we have in mind. We love it when people bring their questions in. Actually, just to make best use of time, even as just kind of folks are joining us here, I'll just quickly talk about us as a group, and then that'll give us the brunt of the time with Praveen, who's going to be leading our session today. So we are all fellow members of the Chief Architect Network. It's a ton of fun to be here with you guys today. Just a little bit about us. We're actually about 360 chief architect executives and thought leaders across Fortune 500 scale practices. We're partnered with Switch On, which is something we're really proud of. It's an opportunity for us to really expand and if you look at these goals, right? Widen our perspectives, share best practices, grow as leaders, develop talent, drive outcomes. Every single one of these is achieved through Switch On. We totally don't need to create something separate. We can partner with Philip and his awesome organization and use the reach of what this group provides. So you'll be seeing Chief Architect Network at most of the Switch On events coming into the future, where we'll get a chance to speak with you and hopefully kind of widen our network at the same time. So this is our first one where we're officially partnered up, and something we're all pretty excited about. So I'm just kind of joining as a panelist in this. Praveen has an amazing topic on future proofing that I was lucky enough to get a preview of when he talked to the Chief Architect Network in a large meeting we just had in Chicago just about 2 weeks ago. He was one of our keynotes. That was our virtual and in-person session. And now we get a chance to chat with all of you and bring you into that broader conversation. So without any further ado, I'm going to take down the little what we are screen. I'm going to pass to Praveen, and I'm super excited to dig in with you guys in this conversation.
Super. Thanks a lot, Grant. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yeah. Okay. Sound great.
So guys, I think very interesting topic. Firstly, I think I want to echo what Grant was saying is this session is for you guys. So please keep all the questions running, and we will answer each one of your questions. That's our commitment. The topic itself is future-proofing enterprise architectures. When you talk to a CIO or a CEO, what do you expect from architecture? Okay. Most of the time, the question is, hey, I don't have a Pandora box. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. The business trends changing, the technology trends changing. I want you to build an architecture that's flexible, scalable, and able to meet fast. I think that's the kind of a message we'll be getting for a lot of these guys. I think a quick snapshot to remember where we are in the world, what time we are in is the world is ever changing. It's the social, economic, and technology shifts that are committing to us every day. And they're really paradigm shifts. It's not a simple change in a system or a process where it's how the business models are changing, how the customer expectations are changing, how you need to drive your business to make it easy to be there, right? And most importantly, what we can see is it's a fast fish. It's you got to be fast and agile, and speed should be your mantra to address all of these changes. Otherwise, you'll be the laggard. That's been happening over the period of a couple of decades, and we'll see that more. We won't have that time of a decade to make these changes. So these are very fast changing changes that are coming ahead of us. With that said, this is an important slide for us that we need to watch out. The new tenets for future-proof and resilient architecture. So what are the tenets? How do we define a future-proof and resilient architecture starting with? We can define it by a couple of pointers here, like ability to fast upgrade. If you're using off-the-shelf software, it should be composable in nature. You can plug and play fast. It should be agile in terms of delivery, security, and automation and AI part of the DNA. Lower total cost of ownership. That is something that will be very impressive and very looking forward to the business case. Data simplification. This is one thing I wanted to pound hard on. We've been spending millions of dollars on data, yet most of our organizations are still struggling with data. So this is something that we need to fundamentally start as a foundation fabric when we talk about data simplification, because the rest of the pieces of the puzzles are based on how good we build the data side. Improved performance, access to innovation, and resiliency. Resiliency is a great item. That is what we need to look for. If you define resiliency, I think we need to have a continuous improvement and improve on a continuous basis. It's not a one-time build it and leave it there, right? That's what I would put. And then the quality of service is continuously improved. So the three big pillars or asks are the speed and agility. We talked about it, the efficiency and simplification, and minimizing the risk and redundancies. So with this kind of dimensions, we just wanted to say how we wanted to see the transformation needs to be built from an architecture point of view. So if you see the brown blocks on underneath, which are foundations, the people and the skills, the process itself, what kind of a process we are trying to move into, and then the platforms, right? So these three are foundational building blocks. And the way all of us will share a couple of insights into these, but we are looking more into digital foundations as a starting point where you understand the ecosystem and understand all the capabilities needed for the ecosystem to be more effective. That includes digital platforms and digital data capabilities. And then you continuously iterate. It's not like a one-stop shop or one day you're done with all the foundations, right? Once your foundations are there, then you're ready for accelerators and transformation. Either new, you're building new, or on legacy. You need to be able to use these platforms to build that next generation architecture. And again, you need to look for continuous resiliency and transformation and improvements. And ultimately, you will be able to get to the digital proof composable solutions. I think this is a logical sequence, and several companies might take a big effort or a small effort or a sprint effort. But either ways, we need to make sure we are adding to the inventory of those digital foundations that the ecosystem can leverage. I'll just like to take a pause and see how our rest of the moderators here also can add some comments. So, Grant, in your life, where have you seen big changes on the people and skill side? Maybe I'll put you on focus there, but
oh, I love that, because honestly, that's one of the key foundations for us is that we always want to go to the technology, right? But honestly, the biggest failures I've seen have been failures to bring our people along. So let's use an architecture example. I found that when we wanted to build an engaged, proactive architecture practice at Lowe's, the first thing we had to do was enroll people in why it was important, because we really only had a small group of people looking at architecture before it went live for any major problems. So you point at the stuff that breaks and how we've had failures in the past and how these, suboptimal designs were getting put together because we didn't have enough time to correct it by the time people were engaged. And, oh, wow, I kind of get that. This is a moment, if we can do earlier work together, we'll have better outcomes. So honestly, it was kind of that alignment on common outcomes that we're all desiring, right? The common incentives. Like, we all want to have a better design. We all want to have our patterns in the implementation versus people coming to us too late. And now we'll lean into let's create something together. So just a simple example, but I think people are one of the most important and often overlooked components of any kind of enterprise change we want to drive.
Thank you so much, Grant. I think that summarizes to a couple of terms, if I may. One is the collaboration, engaging, continuous engagement, continuous collaboration, and also putting the stakeholders into the driving chair, right? So it got to be their kind of mindset, and they clearly understand the objective, what we're trying to accomplish. That's a big change from what people said. I'll just shift the gears here a little bit and talk about platforms and digital capabilities. So, Geeta, in your life, you're reviewing new technologies every day. You're approving legacy transformations. Can you call about how digital platforms are really trying to help us to become these agile, future-proof architectures for us?
Absolutely. And actually, before I go to the platform, if I may just punch in one around the people, because it is the heart of everything we know. And like I would especially say, with all the new changes with generative AI, I think so I work for TIAA, which is 100+ years old company, right? So one of the big thing we are doing while thinking about where to apply digital, generative AI, we have invested in learning and training and bringing everybody along for the ride. So I think that's the heart of, like, if your people are not at the center, everything else falls through, right? So we have declared, like, we have guilds for, different work streams, guilds and gigs that go and solve for, right? So I think I just wanted to, give a shout out to that. So talking about the platforms, right? Again, because if I draw an analogy for us as a legacy company, being 100 years in the business, so I think the focusing on the core capabilities that are needed so that you can unleash it has been the foundation for this, just like how we have laid it out, right? So I think what we're doing is, while we're businesses, we are trying to transform and figuring out how customers will interact and the products that will make sense. We have the whole tech transformation going on. And the major focus is as much as things that are common, things that are changing, including like the models, including some of those, vector databases and things. Take those decisioning away from each individual application owners and make it abstracted and focus on building in the platform, but do in a way so that now anybody can compose on the top and I can swap those out because those technologies are changing. So keep your focus on your engagement versus focus on your system of records or the backend platforms in a way that each can independently innovate and advance without and reduce the friction along the two. So that's the foundation. So building that foundation along with the process is the cornerstone for our digital transformation.
A great point, Geeta. I think excellent story there. I would just try to summarize again. I think once you put your digital blueprint of your enterprise and your ecosystem, showing your collaboration with your partners, suppliers, and your associates or the people that you work with, then you have some catalogs built in. I think that will help these digital catalogs or digital platforms to be very wisely visible, and also people to go and build their stuff on them rather than reinventing the wheel every time. So I'll take a quick tangent into the next question here. So I'll just give you a simple snapshot of what we have been doing on the left-hand side in the past with large legacy ERPs. It's a black box to us. All the user experience, integration layer, and user experience, data, everything is mashed. So it's tightly coupled, and any small change you make, it's a big impact to the enterprise, right? From there, where we are moving is taking this Gartner's construct of system of record, system of differentiation, system of innovation, taking a layered approach. Like then you can start about the concepts of composability and how are you trying to abstract and put loose coupling with those layers. And right on the point of the Geeta was mentioning about digital platforms. So these are all the platforms that we build, like the cloud platform, the security platforms, the automation platform. When we build and make this catalog, then the enterprises can use it for all the projects and programs very successfully. And if you don't show this vision that where we are going as an enterprise architect, that's where the bigger gap would be for people to understand and invest in these platforms and support us. With that said, Srikanth, you've been putting a lot of roadmaps and doing a lot of technology transformation. How often you publish something like a roadmaps, and what is your process of road mapping, and how do you refresh them?
Yeah, very good, Praveen. Yeah, thank you. Typically, when I say roadmap, usually we go through these yearly cycles of funding, planning and funding end of the year, most of the organizations. So that will usually be a line in the sand saying, let's finalize the roadmap for the different portfolios. It can be a business portfolio like sales or marketing, HR, or it can be an IT portfolio like these digital platforms, a cloud first or automation factory. So what we have typically done in all the places I've worked before is kind of create that future state roadmap. Adding on to what you have said, Praveen, earlier, get the inventory, understand the catalog of all the applications, and more importantly, the capabilities which these applications are meeting for us. You can do rudimentary in spreadsheets, you can do tools like Linux and other stuff, but have a basis of what is it we have today in the ecosystem, have a good understanding of that, and then go talk with the needed stakeholders. It can be both business and IT stakeholders and the leaders, and try to figure out where is it we want to go in the next 2 to 3 years. Do we have that North Star architecture or reference architecture where we want to go, and more focused on the capabilities. We have these 10 capabilities today. Do we want to mature these 10 capabilities? Do we want to add 2 more, 12? So have those meaningful discussions and insights with the leadership, and it's part of the enterprise architecture team's responsibility to create those future states So that's kind of the big 60 to 70% of the work. And then for us, where we are planning the yearly cycles, you want to create that roadmap. When I show something today and something in the future, 2 years down, it will usually get lost in the translation. So the focus there, the emphasis I want to say is we have to really show the meaningful roadmap. How do we get from here 2024 to 26 or 27? How many phases or how many steps are there for us to reach that roadmap? And tying back to the Agile architecture and how to meet those needs, usually the target state doesn't really change. It's the roadmap which changes. So multiple things, M&A, we might acquire a new company, or we might get a new regulation coming from the government. So those type of things will influence the roadmap, or we might lose funding for one of the major milestone projects. Things like that. So the roadmap needs to be refreshed and adjusted every 6 months. Sometimes people do it quarterly, which is fine too if you have the manpower. But have the roadmap and have the target state and create a roadmap to meet the target state and revise frequently as needed.
Very, very well said, Srikanth. Thank you so much for that. That's an excellent way. That leads us into a summarization. We talked about people and skills. We talked about process and we talked about platforms. Let's talk a double click on it and really see. I mean, people and skills, each of you can share a lot of experiences, but the self-service training and skills management is a critical component of our people, right? So because we are trying to get more digital and the consumer or the end user is more digitally savvy. And then the digital hackathons and digital champions and pilots, these are the kind of tactics we can use to drive more of the communication. And the town halls and the newsletters continuously updating the teams around what's happening from a people point of view, how many skill certifications people have taken, what are the minimum skills that we need to train the people on, and how many of them are trained. That brings a lot of potential and awareness and takes the fear away from the people to adapt new digital technologies. On the process side, we're also seeing a lot of value process lifecycle management. This is like taking it from an end-to-end approach and identifying the value streams exactly. Where is value to the organization? Where do we need to spend more? And then the concept of a product and a platform. That's a lot of companies are adapting, along with Agile DevOps and then MVP and test and learn sprints kind of an approach. And ultimately, I think Geeta touched base on it. The user is the center of all this. User-centric design, driving digital ventures is very, very important because they need to understand the purpose and why we are doing it, and it has to be their idea. So how do we start educating them to think like that is very important in process. And on the digital platforms, it's a no-brainer for a lot of people because most of the things that you're listing here are basic, I would say, mistakes right now, except for the data and advanced analytics, because that's a continuous maturity we need to adapt and manage. But I think this will show you the resiliency tenets to say how we need to focus on people going forward, how we need to bring them along, how do we need to put a process, and how do we leverage the platforms and tie them together, okay? I will take one more slide and then I'll open up for a lot of questions also, but understanding the end-to-end strategy. And this is where I want the panelists to be sharing some story to see from an end-to-end perspective, because as an architect, that's one thing that we have the mindset. And when I say architect, it's not an individual, it's a role. Each one of them is an architect in the enterprise and they can see that. The only thing is they're so much siloed in their individual work, they will not be able to see the big picture. But our intention should be to show the big picture, why we are doing it from a strategy perspective, how are you translating it, and what are you translating it into, and then how are you getting it accomplished. And taking this end-to-end approach is not simple. This is not a rocket science, or it's very simple that anybody can go and have a prescription and do it, right? This takes a lot of discipline, a lot of commitment, but once you define the North Star, as Srikanth was alluding to, and once you define your roadmap, you need to focus on that purpose and try to make sure every corner is addressed on this one. With that said, in these three fundamental buckets of why, what, how, I would request Grant and Geeta and Srikanth, you guys can take your way of looking at things and how would you advise from a learnings perspective?
I'd love to jump in. So this to me is the foundations that, I think we build a lot of framework and approaches around understanding our why, your mission, your purpose, understanding how that generally, we're not going to set that why, we're going to understand it, right? We're going to understand where the business wants to go. And we may ask questions that help them shape it. And then it's understanding our what, which is where I love that we've been talking about business capabilities. What are those key capabilities? How do those enable our strategy? And not just the one, but the multiple. Like if we want to grow our market share, we might need product and service innovation, but we also might need key opinion leadership. We also might need email campaign management to let people know about it. We might need several other components around that to make that market share grow. Not just having a better product alone isn't enough. And then we start to get into the how, which is the activation, where we look at people, process, information, and technology. Praveen, your slides rocked it, right, as you think about those foundations. And we start to figure out, what is our gap? Where are we today? Where do we need to be to enable market share growth in the space of email campaign management? And where are we at? Do we have the technology to do it? Do we have the people to do it? Do we have the process? Or and this is the one overlooked until most recently, I think, is the information in a place to actually help us get there. So I think this framework is ultimately where we build from a lot of our architecture thinking around.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just add, 100% agree with both, how you have laid out, Praveen, and Grant, what you said. But I'll go back to the roadmap. I feel like the biggest thing we can help the organization is providing that transparency. So, current state, future state get influenced by external factors, business strategy, blah, 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 right? But I think the roadmap is the substrate. And I know, Praveen, you were asked Srikanth earlier, like how often should you refresh? I believe in continuous planning. And I think somebody said plan is worthless, planning is everything. So continuous planning doesn't mean you planning continuously, but it is a continuous plan, right? So how do you create that substrate, which truly, because when you talk about future proofing, I don't believe in future proofing. I believe in future ready, because the moment you prove, the future is actually something different. So how are you ready? How are you enabling that change? And so two other things, I think, like capability is one thing, the most durable thing, most likely, unless you change. But along with that, if you start to see how we actually deliver value to your earlier stack around your digital to all the way up to backend, I think if we also orient ourselves, how are we delivering the value and the value stream? I think that, and then have that end-to-end thinking. And again, as architect, our fiduciary responsibility is horizontal as well as top, front to back, right? And that I think is, if we create that continuum, then magic happens. And lastly, you must have metrics. What gets measured gets improved. So whether right or wrong, start measuring things and then you can fine tune. That's how kind of I have been doing this continuum.
Very well said. Thank you.
Probably. This slide is definitely connecting all the dots from the strategy translation and back into activation. If I take a step and talk about it in a jovial way, this is like converting the actual deck, the presentation deck, into the strategies, into the translation, the Word documents and the spreadsheets, into the activation where you're really deploying or writing code and deploying, purchasing products, writing code and getting all the AI, RPA, all the tools is the activation. So that's kind of the journey connecting all these dots from why to how.
Awesome, guys.
We had a question in the chat as well.
Yeah, let me show you the big picture, because we're talking about the complexity of these capabilities, process, and solutions. If you want to look at from an end-to-end perspective, leveraging the tech, automation, and AI, these are the ones that you should see that have to be there. I'll share these slides with you guys so that you all have good reference. But you look at the core capabilities we talked about and the integration with automation and execution, I think the big picture is definitely what we will be looking at, right? And also there's some governance also that needs to happen. And this is a slide that I wanted to share with you guys, because earlier, a lot of architecture governance stops at architecture and strategy and design. But we don't stay continuously till the end, where we have quality gates that will review everything that we have built, and everything that we have done is committing to the promise. So some of the lessons learned, it might be some, again, different experience from different people. But if I were to redesign the architecture review board, I will add additional quality gates that will help us to actually check what we are doing. And not only check, it's a lot like a police kind of stuff, but it's more like a continuous improvement, understanding the actual practical issues when we put it into production, and how do we address them, and how do we engage them in a continuous way, rather than we architect something and design and then let the operational teams drive it. So that's one thing that I would leave you guys with. Okay? Lastly, some key takeaways, and then we have to have a lot of questions as we promised, and all the questions the panels are going to be helping to drive answer. So having a good blueprint, strategic framework, putting a framework in place, making sure enterprise agrees with that, and having that blueprint is very, very important. And also this dynamic planning, like how Geeta was mentioning it, a continuous change and iterative change is important as you enter into it. And focusing on the people, process, and data, and technology, of course. And then embrace the tools also, right, to automate some of the work, because it's a new tool, new way of working, but we should champion and steward some of that change improvements. And ultimately, I would say drive efficiencies and automation, everything, right? So this is like talking through strategy to execution and leveraging automation and AI and everything. And as I told you, right now, there's a lot of emphasis on process mining, process end-to-end process value realization, and how do we take the process and make it more AI enabled, make it more automation enabled to get that efficiencies of scale as we need. So that is a key takeaway. With that said, I would start and look some questions here. I don't know, Grant.
Well, Tara had one. I'll read it for the group. So,
sure.
What is the role of data mesh and data fabric in proposed architecture thinking? Will AI change any of our architecture thinking? I saw this. My brain started spinning. Anyone want to go after it first?
Yeah, great question. I think I'll start with that, because from an enterprise perspective, you should have the enterprise subject areas and data model, and you should have the catalog, at least to publish what are the different domains of the data, and then what assets are available. And then that's the first fundamental start, right? Because we build a lot of data assets in the past, but we didn't inventory or we didn't collect. Now, a true data services organization is very much possible, provided we also define the event-based management, right? So understanding the ecosystem and seeing if a thing changes, a butterfly change kind of flip, what else needs to consume that change? I think those are the things that we need to write down, and then make sure we focus on those from an event management, and then we build the data services by domain and understanding the priority. I think those will evolve into a catalog, and eventually you'll get there. But you need to take a step-by-step approach. We can't just boil the whole ocean. That's my approach we took, which is successful. And I'll let Grant, Geeta, and Srikanth also address that.
Who wants to go first? I could say something, but Geeta, I'm actually really curious what you think about this one.
Yeah, no, sure. Thank you. So I think whether it is a data mesh or data fabric, I think those are architectural choices. Sometimes it is and not or, but I think that is an important aspect, like what Praveen just talked about, getting your handle on the data. But I think maturing as a data products, and in my humble opinion, a federated data approach in a data like virtualized and data federated, giving the owners and the producers to own so truly the data products. Don't try to bring it everything central in the data platform. That's just how I do, and I think helps. The secondly is about you had a second part of the question. Will AI change our architecture thinking? Hell yeah. If not, then we will be extinct, right? So how and where AI would help us to do our job? Like, we architects usually should be very lazy. So what kind of our work can be automated, whether architecture decisioning and all that AI, and then how do we up-level our critical thinking? How should we multiply? So I'll pause there. I know, Grant, you have something, please add, you and Srikanth. So I'll pause there. So yes.
All right, I'll jump in. Oh, go ahead, Srikanth.
No, actually, Grant, I just wanted to add a comment on what Geeta was. I forgot about the second question, but yes, AI is going to certainly change. I'll give you a great example, right? So all the process mining tools, all the architecture modeling tools, AI is embedded in there. So you see a lot of impact, a lot of inventories, a lot of interfaces. All those are getting connected from a data point of view, and the AI is helping us to find insights that we are not visible to our common eye. and that are helping accelerating our jobs and our architecture reviews and impact assessments and recommendations. So there's a huge impact of AI in how we are architecting the future. Go ahead, Grant.
I'll get Kumar's comment here. He wrote that he sees architecture, both architectures can complement each other, with data mesh focusing on data-driven, productization. Oh, that makes sense, actually. I just didn't say it right. And data fabric, unified connectivity and governance. And I'll chime in with my own thinking as well. I agree with him, also a member of our group, that I think that we're going to see more data-driven decisions, right? If we build better data products, better insights, we put meshes on top of it, then we're going to be able to take smarter recommendations in the space of enterprise architecture. It should influence, it should inform, it should provide insights into our recommendations. And we should be also putting AI on top of this in knowledge graphs and causal graphs that help us start to further cast the future direction. So if you think about the Purdue model in manufacturing, we have devices, and we can all understand how a manufacturing line can self-optimize. Well, as you go farther and farther up the Purdue model to enterprise, it also can self-optimize. And we can start to see things at the enterprise architecture layer where we're going to start to have AI giving us advice on not just how we should do things, but what we ought to do. So I think preparing ourselves for that is a very exciting thing. Also playing across the barriers of the Purdue model is going to be another change we're going to start to see, where these were somewhat siloed. I think AI is in a very unique position to help us start to think about how enterprise drives the plant floor and vice versa. Srikanth, what do you think?
Yes. I like the point which Geeta was talking about, federated. I made a note on that. In my experience, and I believe that's what the industry has learned over the past few decades, data, if it is owned by a centralized organization, the rate of change or the correctness, even the correctness of data is always, it's always wrong. It's always catching up to the latest. If we have that concept of federated, where you have this data fabric and data mesh, where you have the decentralized federated ownership of data and a lightweight centralized, either a team or a people handling all those individual things from an enterprise architecture, that has always reaped a lot of benefits, especially on the data side. So I kind of agree having that federated, but we definitely need a centralized. People federated to the far extent that there is nobody in the centralized team looking at it. So we need that lightweight centralized presence of understanding where the data is across the enterprise. Speaking of AI, yes, definitely, data is a big component of AI, and especially with the new advances, data, you feed in the data, it trains, it learns, and produces the meaningful, insightful data which we want. Actually, just today in the morning, I was trying to create a new application in our tool without going to the names of the tools. I was trying to create a new application. I started typing in, and the tool automatically was populating the likely capabilities the tool will meet based on the description I'm typing. So it's not just the data for the customer, data of the company. It is when I'm talking about enterprise architecture, I'm talking about the capabilities we were talking earlier. Like, can we take requirements? Can we put requirements into an AI engine, give all our capabilities and applications, and can we get a design out of it in the future? Can we get a solution architecture out of it, where it takes all the needed input from our repository of what we were talking earlier, inventory, catalog of applications, capabilities, and everything, and say, hey, these are the applications we should change, or these are the applications which should be connecting in the future to produce your future solution architecture.
So, very well said, and several tools are already available. As I said, like if you take your solution, and they can clearly identify which solution would require the IT components and what is the licensing version of that, or what is the compatibility, or what's the volumes. All of that will be very clearly and automatically driven by the tools as we are speaking. But yeah, it's a great conversation, guys. Any other questions, Grant?
Yeah, we got one from Byron down here. So Byron, do you think companies are paying enough attention to business records management, purge automation to reduce risk, all while being legal hold aware? Very good. I like how that's all hyphenated. I used to work in the content management space. That's a great question. My experience is that most companies have poor data hygiene processes, which unless corrected are going to struggle with regulations that are coming with AI and data. So then I really do see that connection as well with the unstructured and the structured space. So really multifaceted question. Who wants to go after it first?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it. I think we had several situations like that. Compliance and governance is one thing, but also the cost to the companies, right? Because of handling data inappropriately or keeping a lot of data that's past those retention limits, and it's nobody's problem, has been a big problem, to be very precise, right? So we have done a couple of business cases recently where, as we are planning for future state architectures to be more agile and more flexible and more also upgradable ready, the data should be controlled. What is happening in the data? Who's putting what data? How was the data marked and stuff? So there's a lot of emphasis on that. You brought up a very good point, but as I said, this is not a new problem. There's been a problem for a long time, and I think we are continuously paying the price of the IT debt or the storage costs. And now with the data explosion and also with a lot of AI capabilities coming up, we have to make sure that our data is clean and up to date. And that is one of the reasons why we put it in the business case, that we need to deploy records management and archiving and proper data management in the first. It's not a later thing. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's a wonderful thing. Go, please, Geeta.
No, go ahead, Grant. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think it's an amazing thing because we have this opportunity right now. Everyone understands they have to invest in data foundations. And we have a clear and present danger when you point AI at the entire knowledge graph. The security through obscurity thing is dead. We can't do that anymore. So we got to touch all this stuff to fix it. We have tools that can help us do that. But at some point, we also have to really actually invest to do a bit of the librarian work in our unstructured and our structured data, which is an opportunity to clean up exactly what Byron's talking about. There have been some underinvestments, but I'll also say there's always going to be underinvestment in every capability across the company. We're going to accept some risk. Perfection is unaffordable. However, while we're going after this, why not do a little cleanup and actually try to be a little bit more compliant? And that compliant actually removes risk, because if we can also delete more stuff, and if we don't have it and it wasn't under legal hold, it can't be discovered. So there's the other side of that coin that we really want to focus on as well. Geeta, go ahead.
No, I think you covered some of the things I was going to say. Thank you so much, Grant. And I was just going to say, I think the more we make it accessible and easy to discover, right? And obviously the aperture of exposure is also high, but that again, it gives us an opportunity then to go and fix it, right? So I know, like before all, I mean, as Praveen, you said, like this is not a new problem, right? This has been there. So when I was at Veritas even, right, there was like so much issues with, customer data is never clean. Your data is never going to be clean unless you are out of business, right? But then we built something that started giving visibility, and that became a forcing function to go and clean, because the moment you make it, so two things, I think. A, the use case is if it makes use of the data and you start using it, make it actionable, that becomes, this driving factor to go and clean up your data. If you ask somebody to go and clean data without understanding where you are using and the implications of not doing it, nothing will happen, right? So I think so the key point is like, take the momentum with AI, Gen AI that everybody is just going after, use that as a momentum to clean up the data health and data debt.
Thank you.
That's a great one.
One of the lessons we've learned in my previous experiences was when we expect the teams to come to ARB review boards and present with all the checks and controls. This was one of the questions of archival strategy and purging strategy. The teams had to answer, not fix everything, but at least identify, hey, these are all the problems we have. Whether we'll fix as part of this release or a future release is a different conversation, but have a plan coming from the team on their archival and purging strategy. If, as Geeta was saying, if we don't have the resources right now, it goes into a tech debt backlog, but at least it is documented and we can always go back.
So we have two questions in the queue. Kumar had a question, and I missed it. Sorry about that, Kumar. Any guidance on managing and governing resource-intensive roadmap changes? I saw it too when you said it. So Srikanth, I'd love to pass to you first, if that's okay. And then Harrison, I saw your question. We'll go to you next.
Yes. Earlier, people always started with this Power. I think I responded back in the chat as well. So we always have used PowerPoints and at the initial level 0 or level 1 maturity to create the roadmaps, because that is something which can connect with the leadership. So that is always, especially the C-suite leadership. I go and show a tool, they wouldn't even have access to the tool. So go show the presentation which they're used to, a nice future state view of the capabilities. They would not be focused on applications. It's more on the capabilities. And then the next level, granular level, is what are all the applications which are meeting our capabilities for our future strategy. Having said that, we have now new enterprise architecture tools pretty much out of the box. They have these capabilities with 0 customizations. So I'm using one of the tools for now at my organization.
Can I ask you which tool are you using?
Yes, we are using LeanIX. So something I started. Yeah, LeanIX, something I started since I joined the organization a year ago. And I told my leadership, for the next year, this year we were all focused on inventory and cataloging, but next year we will be ready with all the capabilities so that we can design our strategies and future state for the funding cycle next year.
Yeah, I was most recently at Intuit, and we brought actually strategic planning as one of the capability for enterprise architecture and brought that back to capability-based planning and road mapping in LeanIX. Yeah, and now we are using RDoc. I mean, it doesn't matter. Tool is a tool, but I think the notion matters. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of tools right now. Yep.
So I've been popping the questions up because Praveen's sharing the screen, so we can't share. But do me a favor, everybody. Double click on Praveen on his actual page picture if you like today's content. Wasn't this content awesome? I think this was pretty good. Let's show him some confetti. Look at that. It's pretty incredible, man. So next question from. Sorry, Praveen, you were talking.
No, go ahead. I think looking for the next question. Go ahead.
All right. So Harrison asks, let's see, broad question. Are there methods to follow the Chief Architect Network inside or outside of Switch On? This event has been invaluable. Okay, I didn't actually read the question. I just saw you ask one. So I love that one. Go to chiefarchitectnetwork.com. We have a YouTube. You can also link over to follow us on LinkedIn, where we repost everything everybody on this network is saying. So you get to watch what all the chief architects are up to. We have live events. All the Switch On events are Chief Architect Network events. And we also have gatherings like the TCBAF event coming up, Twin Cities Business Architecture. If you're in the Minnesota area or can get there, December 11th through the 13th, it's going to be it is the largest gathering of chief architects in the world. And we have a CAN track where chief architects will be there in person in panels and in sharing their own talks on the Friday, December the 13th. So join us out there. And if you are a chief architect, you become a part of the fun. Go to chiefarchitectnetwork.com and apply. Thanks for the amazing question, Harrison. There's $20 taped under your chair.
Very nice.
Awesome. Well, I think we're getting close. Praveen, do you want to maybe...
Yeah, sure. I think so. What I would suggest is there are questions that are continuous and enormous in this space. So please keep them going, and please keep us in the loop of any questions. One thing I wanted to leave you guys with is every chief architect or every architect is facing different challenges today because of his business situations, his project priorities and stuff. So there's no one solution that we should think like one set of guys are doing better than other people, right? So I think that's why this Chief Architect Network is very helpful. So if you guys have any questions, concerns, you need any references or anything, you can always reach out to your community and we can help each other to be more productive. I think with that said, I think I wanted to thank the panelists first for their time and also your attendance. It's the end of the day, but thank you for staying there. Any further questions, follow-ups, reach out to us on LinkedIn and we'll be able to answer those questions for you. Okay. With that said, thank you so much and have a great one.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.